What a disaster. The Celtics miss out on Giannis. Now they need to figure out what to do with Jaylen Brown. It's been a weird 24 hours. It felt like the Celtics were in pole position. And then Miami just upped their offer. They mortgaged their entire future, all of their young guys, multiple first round picks. Feels like, or from what I've read, the read on it is that adding Kasparas Jakusionis into the deal was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the final nail in the coffin for Boston. Shams has reported Boston's offer was Jaylen Brown plus 2 first-round picks. He wasn't willing to put in a Hugo Gonzalez. He wasn't willing to put in a Baylor Shireman. It was Jaylen Brown is the best player you're going to get. Assets that you can get from flipping Jaylen Brown should be enough to keep things sweet. Pat Riley went up and a bit above and beyond to get his guy, but now Miami are completely and utterly devoid of any future right now. It's hard to say how they're going to build. I don't know what to expect right now. I'm joined by my buddy Billy Calabrese. Let me get that right. I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. What's popping, Billy?
Dude, this is dark times, man. This is maybe the first time ever, even when he was a coach, where I have doubted Brad Stevens. And you got to talk me off the ledge, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, the world I'm living in right now this is a problem, right? Everything to do with Jaylen Brown right now is a problem. Not Jaylen Brown himself, just the situation surrounding Jaylen Brown. You've put him in trade talks before. Brad did it, Danny Ainge did it, but it was always rumors. There was never anything as concrete and as publicly known as what this has been, to the point where there was reports coming out like Jaylen Brown's on board with it. He's made peace with it. He's willing to move because he likes the idea of getting his own team. It got to the point where they were reporting on Brown's mindset about what a trade could look like. We've never been that deep into the trade Jaylen Brown waters as what we just have been. So from that standpoint, I'm kind of like Brad knew there was a risk here. On the other standpoint, I'm very big on you know where your line in the sand is. Like if you want something in life and you know it's going to come at a cost, draw your line to where that cost is going to be. Because if you go over that, now that's when you can start having buyer's remorse. Giannis is already 31. He's coming towards the end of his athletic prime. Obviously, he's still going to be a beast for a few years. I was all in on getting Giannis. I'm not about to backtrack on that right now. I still think he raised the floor and the ceiling for this team in the next 3 to 4 year period. But mortgaging your future further down the line than that was clearly something Brad wasn't willing to do. Now, he has to deal with the fallout from whatever happens with Jaylen Brown right now. I know there's been multiple reports. Kevin O'Connor reported that sources have told him that the Celtics are going to continue looking to shop Jaylen Brown. Brian Windhorst said yesterday that it feels like even if it's not Milwaukee, Jaylen Brown's going to be on the move. There's a lot of reporting surround. Shams kind of said it without saying it. There's a lot of reporting around now that Brown will still get moved. The problem is the best return you could have got for him is now off the board. So I'm not talking you off the ledge, but what I am saying is I respect somebody that's like, that's too much for what we're getting in return. We're already giving you a lot. We're not going to give you ridiculous amounts because we can get assets back for Jaylen Brown ourselves. It's not like Jaylen Brown is this scrub with no trade value. Dude was in MVP conversations this year. That should have been enough along with 2 first-round picks. So I respect Brad there for holding ground, but I do think that this is a problem of his own making at the same point.
Now, do you think he overplayed his hand and he knew that? Or do you think that this was all a part of the plan all along? Because if you do want to trade Jaylen Brown later on, this is how you plant the seeds for it. This is how you make it a little more open that you could trade him for what, let's be honest, is going to be a lesser package than getting a Giannis type. I do wonder that if a part of this was really just to get the foot in the door on the Jaylen offers, see what the market is, see what's out there. And it really did screw over Miami because they had to seriously up their offer to a level where they are depleted. There's no way they're going to be able to get better. And I do wonder, like, I mean, I hope Brad's smart enough to know that the 2 picks and Jaylen wasn't going to cut it. I mean, that's just not enough.
Yeah, I think there was a low ball offer. There's an argument out there that Brad did a Pat Riley and he got involved simply to drive up the value of what Miami was going to give to essentially weaken an opponent long term. You can make that argument because when you look at what he was offering, that kind of feels like what he did. This was all posturing to make Miami go further in and further in. I don't see it that way. I don't think you risk alienating one of your two best players publicly like this in a bid to force somebody else to pay a different team more. Basically, if that is the case, then Brad got played by John Horst over in Milwaukee. I don't see it any other way. There is no way you can convince me that he got involved to drive the price up for Miami, knowing the risk could be that you lose Jaylen, unless he already has an idea of what he wants to do with Jaylen in terms of a trade, and Giannis was just a conduit to getting you there. Now, that could be a Trey Murphy deal. He might want Zion Williamson. You could go and look at Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun. You can go multiple ways. And anybody listening to this or watching this right now, by the time you're listening or watching, my newsletter should have dropped where we kind of looked at every different option available to Boston right now in terms of Jaylen Brown. But you can't convince me that this was all a ploy because of the risk that you ran with Jaylen on the side. That, okay, could you have had a side conversation with Jaylen and told him this? Look, this is what's going to be said. This is where we stand on it. What's happening and what's being said are not the same as what our intentions are. Of course, you could. We don't know what's said in the background, but I really struggle to see the validity of that train of thought.
Well, then we have to go back to point A, which is Brad really was incompetent in this deal from the start and did it with intentions that weren't, when you say you're all in for somebody, you're willing to put a Jaylen Brown on the table, you have to really be all in. You can't back out when it starts getting, the water start getting a little thicker. Like I even thought, yeah, I understand the draft compensation and stuff, but what happened to the whole Kuzma thing and just absorbing him into the TPE, giving Milwaukee some relief? Like there had to be some kind of middle ground. And the fact that we didn't even fight for that, we're just like, hey, our offer's Jaylen and 2 picks. Either Brad is really, really just off his game on this one, or there's something bigger at play here.
Yeah, I think that part of me feels that I think Hugo or Baylor may have been in the deal, right? And I think what happened is we only know what the final offer was. We don't know what the offers were leading up into this. And for all we know, Brad's trying to save face with the younger guys now because it's like, well, I'm already alienating Jaylen. So the way I kind of envision it playing out, and this is me just galaxy brain shit, is Brad goes in like, we'll give you Jaylen, Ugo, 2 first-round picks. Miami then go, well, we'll give you Kalel Ware, Jaime Jaquez, Tyler Hero, 3 first-round picks. Brad then says, we'll take on somebody in return, so give you cap space. Miami says, we'll give you Kasparov Giucchione, so however you pronounce his name. Milwaukee then says to Boston, throw in Baylor Scheinman and you've got a deal. Brad goes back and says, now it's down to Brown and 2 picks. And that's his way of like waving the white flag whilst not completely pulling himself away from the deal. All we know is what the final offer was, not the iterations of the offer that came before this one, right? They've been talking for weeks. There's probably been 50 different blueprints of how a deal could look. And as Miami kept upping the price, I think Brad realized, like, if they're going to lean towards the draft picks and the ability to get some of these young guys rather than either bringing Brown in and risking him wanting out or trying to flip Brown or if they just want the guaranteed of the deal that Miami's offering, then that's going to be the way they go. And I personally think Brad pulled back.
I hope that's the case. The only thing I really worry about is Ugo, because he's going to be forever known as the guy we wouldn't trade Giannis for. And for a kid who had such a promising first season, it's such a unfair pressure to put on him because every time he has a bad game, and it's going to happen. He's human. He's going to have good days and bad days. Everybody's going to be like, yeah, you guys could have had Giannis, but you got this guy. And I just really don't want that to stick on the kid because I really do think he has a bright future. I just think we put him in a really bad spot with this.
Yeah, you put him on a pedestal like, oh, this is the guy we won't trade for Giannis. And that means this is a guy that you think is good enough to not warrant moving for a 2-time MVP, 1-time defensive player of the year. Because that's the level that Giannis is at. And this is why, as much as I'm like, oh, well, the future, maybe keep Brown. No, this is why you do that deal. And this is why I've been on board with trading Jaylen Brown for Giannis and not doing it to keep Hugo, who, let's be face it, as Celtics fans we all like, but we're not very attached to. It was going to be Jaylen moving that hurt. I think that this one was going to be okay, we can live with that. So to keep him out of the equation when realistically there's a chance he doesn't improve to a point where he's even an all-star. Look, there's a chance he becomes more than an all-star. I'm not saying there's no chance, but there's a realistic chance where he's just a high-level role player for his career. We don't know. There's such a range with Hugo. It all depends on how his offensive game shakes out. Him being your line in the sand is a little bit rich for me. I find that really hard to believe unless Brad really incredibly rates this guy and sees him being a key core piece.
It's so mind-boggling because, like I said, we all are attached to him. I mean, I'm the first one who bought a Hugo jersey, man, but I just don't get this. Like, is Brad really this far off of like what everybody else is thinking? Or does he have some kind of plan B, C, and D? And we're going to find out really soon. I mean, he's going to have to speak after the draft tomorrow. And I am fascinated to see how he sells this because the fan base, you have both sides unhappy. Now you have the Jaylen stands unhappy because, you know, their guy was offered in a deal. You have the guys who, you know, wanted to improve the team unhappy. Like there is nobody in Boston that's happy right now.
And look, no one can bat 1,000. Brad cannot be held to a standard where he has to hit home runs every time. But this was one of those times where you didn't need to be involved in this and you chose to be involved. At that point, if you're trading for it, look, if Miles Bridges can go, no, not Miles Bridges. If Mikal Bridges can go for 5 picks, then and you can trade Desmond Bain for multiple picks, and all these guys are getting thrown around for draft capital. You cannot then go hunting in the big leagues. You cannot go big game hunting for a Giannis with just Jaylen Brown and 2 picks. I'm sorry, I get that Jaylen Brown is a great player. He's a top 15 guy, but we're talking about a future Hall of Famer in Giannis. You do not go to that. You're going to a gunfight armed with a butter knife. You're not on that level. And I think that Boston had all the necessary tools to put together the best overall package. And it just didn't work out that way. And as you said, there needs to be an option B, C, D, and E. Could it be Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy? Could it be Kevin Durant? Could it be Alperen Sengun? Could it be name any guy you want? None of them are at the level of Giannis. So whatever move you make now is a consolation prize. And Brown's going to definitely feel a type of way. I say definitely. I'm assuming Brown's going to feel a type of way because of how publicly this played out. So you are in a bad situation. And I remember you messaging me when the trade went down. Like, the only way to really keep Brown happy now is to give him that extension. And I think that's the worst idea in the world. Because now you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And you're committing so much money to the back end of his career that I was against that. I was against the extension before the trade talks. I'm dead set against that extension now.
Yeah, I do wonder if that's in Brad's back pocket for him putting Brown out in these rumors. He knows he could always circle back to that extension and water goes under the bridge, but it just puts you at such a it's just a bad mindset. That's not how you build a team. That's not why you give out extensions. It's not logical by any means. Like, oh, I have this, get out of jail free card with Jaylen if I piss him off. So yeah, let's just throw money at the problem. I mean, it never seemed to be the way Brad would move anyway. It's really frustrating that this is kind of the road we're going down where it's either we get 50 cents on a dollar for Jaylen in a deal, or we have to overpay to keep him. And the problem in the whole reason we wanted to do this Giannis trade is because it's easier to build a championship team around Giannis and Tatum than it is Tatum and Brown. We know this. It takes a lot of moving pieces to make that 2024 team. It took a lot of trial and error. It took the Malcolm Brogdon failures. It took Marcus Smart failures. It took Rob Williams failures to finally get that Drew KP when he was healthy, that kind of combo. Even Derek White, is his shot ever going to come back? It's so much easier to do that with a Giannis and a Tatum as your base than a Tatum and Brown.
One day we're going to circle back to you saying a Malcolm Brogdon failure because I thought he was actually really good when he was in Boston. 6th man of the year, played well. That's for a different day, right? People are going to have their opinion. You are right, though. We've seen what this team can be like when you put the right pieces around Tatum and Brown. We've seen it. The problem is as you said, it's difficult. It's very few and far between. It's one championship in 9 years. We're at a point now where maybe it's time to explore different opportunities. And look, not everybody's going to agree with that. A lot of people were very dead set against trading Jaylen Brown. I'm lower on Jaylen Brown simply because I'm so high on Jason Tatum, right? And this isn't me pitting them against each other. This is just the fan base has got into a very weird position where you're on one side or the other. And if you're in the middle, then you tend to really catch the stick. You're either in Camp Tatum or Camp Brown. And I just think as a fan base, the idea is to be united. There's enough other fan bases giving you like coming for your neck that you shouldn't really be infighting over who your best player is, especially when it's so obvious that it's Tatum. So, and look, that's me taking a little dig, but it's also true. I don't think it's as debatable as what people say. And then you have the idea of maybe if we trade Jaylen, that we can bring a star in. But I want to bring up something that I watched yesterday on Club 520 with Jeff Teague. And Jeff Teague said, maybe now is, and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, maybe now's the time to not bring another star in and to put Tatum at the top of that mountain and then build the pieces around him and give Tatum an opportunity. Everyone keeps talking about Brown having a chance to run his team. Tatum needs that chance too. Okay, Tatum's the first option, but he's still like there's still him and Brown. It's their team. And I genuinely believe that this isn't Tatum's team. It isn't Brown's team. It's Tatum and Brown's team. So as much as we talk about Brown deserving a chance to run a team, as Teague said, maybe it's time Jason gets that chance too. And we've seen it can be successful when you look over at the way Indiana built around Halliburton. So as much as we don't like it, maybe a trade including Jaylen is for some elite level role players or like, borderline all-stars or low level all-stars that are going to complement Tatum's game and give you a more well-rounded offense in general, which I know for you is where that Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray type deal comes from, yada, 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 yada. There is an argument to be made that if they do move Jaylen, perhaps it's not one star coming back, perhaps it's 2 or 3 dudes that plug real needs for the team, that elevate the team as like a collective sum rather than as individual talents.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping. Like I said, even a Lauri Markkanen and Kessler for Brown kind of deal. I'm just saying where you get 2 good players for the price of 1. But if we don't nail this summer, we are closer to a rebuild than a championship. And there's no going back after that. Like I said, if we blow this summer, then you're going to have the Tatum questions coming up later after that. We really have to hit this like nail on the head, whatever we do with Jaylen Brown. If we keep him, somehow get enough talent in to compete with him still being here, which I just don't see a path. But trading him, it has to be for the right guys. Because if you blow it this summer, we're taking steps closer to a rebuild than a championship. And I don't know if Tatum would stick around for that.
I think that it's probably far too early for me to be even considering a rebuild. I understand what you're saying. I do think you get through this year, you clear the repeat attacks. Now you can spend a bit more and it gives you some options to become a little bit more extravagant in the way you chase deals. But I do get what you're saying as well. Like if you don't trade Brown now and you extend him, he's basically untradeable at that point because how much money is guaranteed to him. Teams are going to not really want to take that type of deal on. It's a different situation if Brown gets traded and then signs an extension elsewhere, because now he's committing to the team he's now with. If he signs with Boston, it's just really hard to see that happening. Signs, whatever you want to call it. I do think that this is a very much now we're in a position where they need to have a very clear idea of how they want to play. Brad seems to have one idea. Joe has another idea. There's no synergy. If you listen to what's coming out, Joe was like, we got great shots. I'm happy with the offense. Brad's like, we need more rim pressure. Everybody wants more dunks. It should be dunks and layups, then threes. Joe is like, it should just shoot, and don't give a shit about any other type of shot. Again, I'm being hyperbolic, but you get what I'm saying. And I think until you get a clear, straight cut synergy in how you want to play and the strategies you want to implement as a franchise and as an identity, that until that is in place, trying to find the right pieces for this team, whether that involves Jaylen Brown being in Boston, whether it involves Jaylen Brown being elsewhere, is going to be trial and error because you're trying to build between 2 separate philosophies. And that, to me, is the biggest problem right now. There needs to be clear-cut vision. And while Joe is the guy that implements, Brad is the guy that builds the roster. So if you two aren't on the same page, Brad's going to get guys he thinks that can play well. it starts to create a little bit of a pickle. And I think that if you're going to trade Jaylen Brown, it needs to be because you're all on the same page about how you want to move forward as a unit. And right now, I'm just questions whether that's the case.
I mean, isn't that the most frustrating part of this all? Everything Brad said we needed, Giannis would have covered. The dunks, the rim protection.
Literally.
It's, you couldn't design in a lab a better fit than that. And then for us to kind of like, dip our foot in the water, but not jump in the pool to get the guy. I mean, I don't get it. Is Brad just not the guy we thought he was?
I'm not going to go that far after one miss. He hasn't put a foot wrong since moving into the front office until this, really. People could say the Vooch trade, but as far as the cap size of things, the Vooch trade was a massive success. It was never made to be an on-court trade. It was made to be a cap trade. So from that standpoint, Boston maximized their assets to create a TPE. They get under the luxury tax. They move off Vooch, so that money comes off the books. It was like win, win, win. Vooch got hurt. Nobody saw that coming. So the basketball side didn't really carry the same level of success. But, here we are. We move. What I will say, though, is that you're coming into a summer. Oh, I don't know if you heard the dog then. You're coming into the summer where Jaylen Brown's trade value will never be higher, ever. And he's not going to be that level of MVP candidate again while Jason Tatum is healthy, because he just won't have the touches or the usage rate. Not like he did this year. That's going to be going back to Tatum. There'll be a bit more of a split. So if you're going to trade Brown, now is the summer to do it. His trade value is not going to be high. And unless Brown explicitly requests a trade from Boston, unless that report comes out that Brown has put in a trade request, you can still go for 70, 80 cents on the dollar, because Boston can be like, hey, we don't need to give him to you. We can sign him to an extension. We're good. The idea is that Brad should try and make the move now, in assuming he does want to trade Brown, in kind of like in a way to mitigate the risk of Brown asking for a trade and then his value around the league decreasing. Because once Brown asks for a trade, now you're working on 50 cents to the dollar, 60, 50, 45 cents to the dollar. Up until that point, this Giannis trade probably hurt his value a little bit, but you're getting that 80 cents, 90 cents. It's still fairly even money for his value around the league. So if Brown wants out, and if Brad is willing to facilitate that, and this is what both sides think is best for the future of the Celtics and for the future of Brown, I would like that to be done before Brown gets to a point where he wants to request a trade.
Yeah, time is of the essence of this, because the longer he stews on this, the more streams he does, the more times he speaks out, and just, this whole attitude he's had since we've been eliminated after that 3-1 lead, it's only going to make things worse and make him kind of a red flag for teams, right? Like, I mean, his behavior this summer has been odd. We've noticed it because we're Celtics fans, but I don't think the mainstream media has kind of realized it yet. So I'm hoping the other teams don't realize that, like, yeah, this guy's kind of turning into a Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, his comments about it being his favorite team, I get that he explained them away, but people aren't going to read it that way. They're just not. A lot of people will not read it that way. Sometimes once you say what you say, and I've been victim of this because I speak without thinking, I reply on socials without thinking, then I've realized that either I shouldn't have said it, it got taken the wrong way. And sometimes I'll say something not meaning it that way, it'll get taken that way, and I'll just double down anyway, because I'm like, once you say it, it's hard to kind of explain it away. And I think Brown's learning that right now. Is like, he said what he said with whatever intention he had, but that intention didn't correlate to the way it was received by most people. And while he did come back and explain it afterwards, the damage had been done. A lot of people saw that as a slight at Tatum, and you can't have your two best players vying for the number one spot. It just, again, you want synergy amongst everybody. You want unity. And I'm not saying that's not there. And I'm not saying that this is why Brown's in trade talks or anything like that, because I just don't know. I don't have that information. And teams will look at that because it's like just a chemistry aspect. Is Jaylen going to be what if we had Jaylen and he's our number one option? It doesn't work for a year or two. So we had somebody else and now Jaylen's number two. Do we have to then put up with these live streams? Do you know what I mean? I'm going to ask you this because I know where I stand, and I'll put it out there first. Actually, I'm expecting Jaylen Brown to still get traded. That's where I'm at. I don't think we start the season with Jaylen. If we do, then great, but I don't think we get there. I think that this team needs some major adjustments. And unfortunately, Brown is the guy that carries the biggest trade asset. Like, he's your biggest trade asset. And with the amount of adjustments this team needs, I'm not one that believes a couple of fringe additions is going to fix this. The East is getting too strong. Detroit are going to improve again this year. Indiana's going to be back because now Tyrese Halliburton's healthy. You've got the Knicks. You've got the Cavs. I'm not really going to put the Sixers there, but so be it. Do you know what I mean? The Hornets are another team on the up. The Magic just hired a new head coach that's going to actually probably give them a decent shot of playing some decent offense. Everyone around you is improving. And I'm not saying that a lot of these teams are better than Boston, but what I'm saying is the gap isn't as big as it was a year or two ago. That gap is closing. And I do understand the idea of, like, maybe if we make a change now, we can put some more space between us. And if that means losing one of our best players in order to find guys that elevate the team as a whole, then so be it.
Yeah, and I just think the vibes and all the things he's going to have on his back, like he's going to want to prove people wrong again. Because, I mean, let's face it, he just got turned down. They'd rather have Tyler Hero and Kyle Ware than Jaylen Brown in Milwaukee. I mean, we can say it's the picks, we can say it's all this other stuff, but if he doesn't consider that an insult, he's not paying attention, because that's basically what they said. They would rather take their chances with some mystery picks and Tyler Hero and this poo-poo platter, which wasn't even enough for Dame Lillard a year ago, and they got Giannis for it. So, I mean, he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder. I don't think you could bring that in. I think you have to trade him. And I don't even think you can wait till September. I think it has to be June, July.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Like,
draft.
it is what it is. Look, at the end of the day, Brad's going to make the moves that Brad needs to make. I do think that the worst case scenario here, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, is that you extend Jaylen Brown. I was against it before. I'm against it now. At the end of the day, you don't propose, you don't marry a girl because, or you don't marry a partner because you cheated on them. Do you know what I mean? Oh, I'm sorry, I got caught. Let's get married, because that's how it's going to feel. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, you don't go and cheat on somebody and then propose. So, and if you do, then you really need to start seeing some therapists, because that's clearly not the way you should be conducting it. Obviously, that's a bit of a weird kind of correlation, but it's very similar. Like, they were sending flirtatious glances, they were having those little secretive DMs, they were sliding into each other, you know, maybe sending some screenshots of some nice trade proposals. They get caught. They're like, yeah, we did it. Now Brown's in it. It's public. Yeah, we're doing it. Oh, it didn't work. Jaylen, marry us and stay with us, please. Do you know what I mean? So you don't do that. You don't propose the minute you get caught doing some fucked up shit. And because of that, I'm against it.
Yeah, it's really dangerous kind of thinking. It's that, like, where a couple's about to break up and they're like, no, we'll just have a kid. That'll save all of our relationship problems. No, it will not. If you had problems before, you're going to have them after.
And with that, everybody, let us know how you're feeling. Are you on team keep JB and JT together? Are you kind of accepting the reality that JB is probably gone no matter what? Are you pissed they didn't get Giannis? Or are you kind of just like, we'll see what happens. I trust in Brad. All of them are fair answers. I'm just wondering how many of each we're going to get in the comment section. That's what it's for. Make sure while you're there, you subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle. Link is in the comment section pinned. Make sure you show Billy some love over on Letterboxd. And as always, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any more Celtics Chronicle. Till next time, peace.